Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jess Correa, a mental health specialist and wellness specialist at the Rutgers University Behavioral Healthcare Center, National Center for Peer Support. And I'm excited to welcome you all to our first New Jersey Fire and EMS webinar, which is part of our Resilience webinar series. The New Jersey Fire and EMS Lifeline is a peer support and crisis line that works to support professional and volunteer firefighters and emergency service personnel to include dispatchers. Rutgers University Behavioral Healthcare National Center for Peer Support is recognized as a national best practice to serve those who serve others. We have two brief rules to go over before we get started with our webinar. The first one is please do not drive while watching the webinar. Even if you're using a hands-free device, we encourage you to park your car or join us when you reach your destination. And the second rule is to do what's most comfortable for you. If you'd like to keep your camera on or off during the webinar, please feel free to do what feels best. I would like to thank all of you who have taken the time to join us today. We've designed this webinar to build your resilience in a culturally competent approach that's customized to first responders, firefighters, and EMS personnel. As I mentioned, this webinar is part of our Resilience webinar series, where we will be learning about the 6 skill sets of resiliency researched and backed by the University of Pennsylvania. Each webinar will give you an opportunity to learn more about resilience and tactics you can use while at work to help build your resilience. The New Jersey Fire and EMS Lifeline is part of the National Center for Peer Support at Rutgers University. Our peer support program utilizes the reciprocal peer support for wellness model to provide firefighter and EMS specific peer support. When you call in to speak to a peer or a mental health professional, you'll be speaking to someone who understands your needs. Peer support is the first choice of care for first responders, since we are who we serve at the New Jersey Fire and EMS program. On your screens, you'll see our flyer, which may look familiar if you've seen it around your workplace. We encourage you to take a picture of this flyer. It highlights all of our important information. We'll give everyone a minute or two to jot down our phone number in their cell phones. Even if you may not be in need of our services or support at this time, you never know when somebody at work might benefit from our assistance. We're joined today by 2 of the peer counselors from the New Jersey and Fire EMS program. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce you to our team here at the New Jersey Fire and EMS Lifeline. We're joined by Judy Schaudy and Alan Finkelstein. You'll have the opportunity to hear more from our peers later on in the webinar. Our mission here at the New Jersey Fire and EMS Lifeline is to provide peer support and crisis response for professional and volunteer firefighters, EMS, and dispatchers. Our team is comprised of peers who are retired and active firefighters and EMS professionals. They understand the challenges you face every day on the job and can relate to your stressors. Peers are partnered with mental health professionals and expertise in first responder stress. Our services at the New Jersey Fire and EMS line include crisis response, peer support, ongoing telephonic peer counseling, clinical assessments, and referrals to culturally competent providers. As a prevention option, we offer Question, Persuade, Refer, also known as QPR, for firefighters in EMS, as well as resilience training. And for postvention, we offer critical incident stress management services, which are available following a critical incident or traumatic event to mitigate PTSD. The University of Pennsylvania resiliency model encompasses a set of skills extensively backed by research, which build cognitive and emotional fitness, strength of character, and strong relationships. Our webinars will focus on 3 different resiliency skills. Today's focus will be self-awareness, self-regulation, and mental agility. The other resiliency skills include strength of character, connection, and optimism. For almost 30 years, the UPENN model of resilience has been utilized by the United States Army, Pennsylvania State Police, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the United States Department of Justice, as well as by several universities, schools, and foreign governments. Studies have shown that this approach increases well-being and optimism, reduces and prevents depression, anxiety, and conduct problems, improves physical health, and results in fewer mental health diagnoses, and in one study, fewer substance abuse diagnoses. We have adapted these skills presented in the UPENN model to give you an introduction to the resiliency skill set and to give you practical ways to enhance your resiliency in your day-to-day life. Let's turn our focus to our first resiliency skill, which is self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to pay attention to your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and physiological reactions. We'll be discussing self-awareness in the lives of firefighters, dispatchers, and EMS, and how self-awareness can benefit you while at work and in your personal lives. We'll discuss tips and show you ways to enhance your self-awareness while discussing some challenges that you may face specific to your profession. I'll now be sharing a clip from a video reflecting on life as a firefighter and some of the everyday challenges firefighters face.
I was the guy. I was the guy who couldn't hack it. I was the guy who needed help. I never thought it would be me, but it was me.
With presents wrapped and under the tree, fire broke out at the home of fashion executive Madonna Badger. It was merciless. 7-year-old twins, their 9-year-old sister, and their maternal grandparents all died on Christmas morning. When Captain Roy and his team came in to relieve the first shift, the grandfather and one of the girls were still missing.
Our crew recovered those two bodies. In the days that followed, this whitish pink color that I experienced at the scene, every time I saw it, I would relive the incident. And I would drive my kids to school, I'd drop them off, and every little girl had a backpack with that color on it.
See in your eyes, I mean, you're obviously at a place now where you can comfortably talk about it, but it's still, it's still a struggle with something like that, right?
Yeah, it's never pleasant. It's never pleasant.
Captain Roy still speaks haltingly about that death, and he's only able to do so after getting the counseling he needed from a trauma specialist. But so many of our first responders don't get help, and they're hurting. We know because they told us. NBC partnered with the International Association of Firefighters and sent anonymous surveys to firefighters across North America. 7,000 responses paint a picture of a culture still trying to cope with mental health and PTSD. Almost all surveyed, 95%, say they experience critical stress on the job. 27% say the stress has led to substance abuse. And of particular note, 19% say they've had thoughts of suicide. By the very nature of the job, firefighters have to compartmentalize. They have to set aside emotions of the moment to confront the emergency at hand.
We suffer from the same challenges the general public does: financial issues, marital issues. Now you compound that with the horror that we see every day, it adds up.
And so these firefighters who come running with turnout gear that can weigh 50 pounds often carry emotional baggage that's weighing them down far longer. And our survey revealed many of them are afraid to talk about it because of the perception. 81% fear they will be seen as weak or unfit for duty. 87% say it's keeping them from getting the help they need. It is a number far too high, and it's why Captain Jacques Roy is talking about it to us and to his brethren.
It may seem contrary to everything you think of yourself. We're not superheroes, we're human.
I'll now be passing it over to our peer Alan, who will be giving us a quick introduction of his background and what stood out to him in the video.
Thank you, Jess. Hi, everyone. My name is Alan Finkelstein. I spent 34 years in the volunteer and career fire service. And I, perhaps like some of you, was indoctrinated in the fire service to think that asking for help was showing weakness or being wimpy. Was it intentional? Probably not, but that was the culture at the time. The video we've just seen just demonstrates how prevalent that idea has been in the fire service. I'd like to think that we've moved a long way since I started, and that reaching out for assistance doesn't make you look foolish or weak. We've all seen our fair share of incidents that might haunt us for the rest of our lives, but that doesn't mean that we need to let those thoughts control everything that we think, feel, and do. We have normal stressors that we experience every day at home with our families, with our friends, and wherever we might be. When you throw those incidents into the mix, it can get unbearable. The first step in the process that we have is being self-aware of essentially taking your emotional temperature and recognizing that maybe you're overwhelmed with things. We always are talking about situational awareness in the fire service and doing your 360 around a fire scene so we know what's happening. Doing the same thing for yourself is so important. Try to get in touch with your feelings and watch for behavioral changes in yourself. Are you crabby with your spouse and kids for minor things? Are you having trouble sleeping? If you see these kinds of things happening, it's the time to reach out for help. Keep yourself safe and emotionally healthy by getting assistance, whether it's talking to a buddy at work, your spouse, or a professional counselor. You're the one that knows yourself best. Use that resilience and strength to bite the bullet and say, I need help. Your family, your department, and amazingly enough, yourself will find that it makes life better for everyone. The next thing I'll do is pass it over to my fellow peer, Judy, for her reaction to the video and how she's used self-awareness in her career as a police officer and EMT.
Thank you, Alan. Hi, everyone. My name is Judy, and I'm a former police officer and EMT. I was an officer for 7 years, and I left the profession to raise my sons. I later became a volunteer and paid EMT and did that for over 20 years. I also have done critical incident debriefings for over 20 years also. I can relate to the fire call, the video, and the firefighter's reaction. As a squad captain, we lost an 18-month-old baby in a fire in 2001. I felt the stress of that for many years. I would smell smoke anywhere and I could feel myself tense up. I learned that I needed to regulate that stress, so I'd slow down and regulate my breathing. Handling stress and recognizing it is foremost for first responders. People's lives depend on your skills and your ability to remain calm. EMTs are exposed to many stressors like disease, domestic violence, exposure to drugs, traumatic injuries, and death. You need to be aware of the cumulative stress and to take care of yourself. I'll pass it back over to Alan so he can walk us through a self-awareness quiz.
Thank you, Judy. Now we have a quick quiz to determine how self-aware you are and maybe take note of some areas where you could improve yourself a little bit. There are 6 statements on the screen that we'll be going through together. If you have a pen and paper available, you may want to write down your answers so you can add up your total score at the end. A high score will reflect a high sense of self-awareness. The highest possible score you can get is 30, so keep that in mind when reflecting on your results. Each statement will be read aloud and you can jot down your answers. The scoring is based on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 being strongly disagreeing with the statement and strongly agreeing with the statement being a score of 5. Let's begin. I'm confident and realistic. I know when to ask for help. Statement 2, I'm aware of and comfortable talking about my strengths and limitations. Statement 3, my decisions and actions directly reflect my values. Statement 4, I'm always conscious of the impact my behavior has on myself, others, and my job performance. Statement 5, no one knows me better than I know myself. And statement 6, I know what I want to achieve and why it matters. Now let's take a minute to add up our scores and see how we did. If you scored lower than you had hoped, take a minute to reflect on any areas where you can make room for improvement. We also encourage you to share your reactions to the quiz with us. In the chat, you don't need to share your scores, but feel free to share how you did or what you noticed. The first time I completed the quiz, I noticed that I could use quite a bit of improvement in some areas.
Thanks, Alan. Being self-aware is important, but recognizing that stress and regulating it is an important next step. Now let's move on to our second resiliency skill and learn a little bit more about self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to change one's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and physiology in the service of a desired outcome. Our peers will be sharing their experiences with self-regulation. I'll first be passing it over to Alan so we can hear more about self-regulation as a career firefighter.
Thanks, Jess. The second part of our process is self-regulation. In other words, how do we make ourselves capable of handling the situation without generating even more stress for ourselves and others? Having spent 31 years as a hazmat command and safety officer, I had some good mentors that helped me to learn the best ways to control my thoughts and feelings during an incident response. They taught me to relax, even with the adrenaline flooding my body. One of the things they beat into our heads was that hazmat incidents aren't emergencies like fires and heart attacks. You respond to the scene, do a proper size up, come up with a plan, and then take action. Taking the extra seconds to do a good incident analysis can save minutes, hours, or lives. Slow yourself down, take those extra few breaths to get more oxygen to your brain, and then make your decisions. That can carry over to your whole life, not just at work, but at home too. You, just like I do, know that all incidents come to an end. Hopefully what we do after our size up will make the incident end on a positive note rather than a negative one. Talking to somebody else can have a wonderful effect on your life. There will always be those stressors that we can't escape, but we can change the way we deal with them. And sometimes we have to reach outside of ourselves to find solutions to our problems. I'll now pass it over to my fellow peer, Judy, for her response.
Thank you again, Alan. I found that after an incident out of the normal that I needed to try to relax my body. So I would do this with deep breathing, and if I could, focus on the positive of that particular incident.
Next, we'll be sharing a clip of a video reflecting on the stress of being an EMT and a first responder.
Sir, my name's Stuart. I'm a paramedic. What's bothering you today? Oh, my chest. I'm gonna listen to you breathe real quick. I'm gonna have you change that. Just a little bit of oxygen for you. Well, breathe. 9 deep breaths. Interrupt mercy. You'll be okay.
Having done this profession for 38 years, you see a lot of tragedy. And occasionally you're lucky enough that you're able to save people. A lot of the stresses for paramedics and EMTs in this profession revolves around the fact that you're serving a community. In the urban environment, it's volume. But in a small town like this, you know everybody and the calls that you run. The other thing is that you can't unsee these things. It's not just what you see, but it's what you smell. It's what you hear. If people are not managing their stress correctly, it's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to bad behavior. Because we didn't have it last year because of COVID.
A call that sticks with me is a call that occurred early one morning. We got notified from a guest on the 20th floor of a high-rise hotel that was just to the east of a rail yard. There was a body down in the rail yard. As we went out there, we found the body of a young girl who was nude and hogtied, had been shot in the back of the head. My partner at the time was a brand new EMT. I think it was his first GSW, first traumatic cardiac arrest. Yeah, it was a lot of firsts for him. He carried the baggage with him for a long time, I know, because we would talk about it.
Certainly had PTS. I wouldn't say I've had this. You definitely see things that most people don't see. I started training in November of 2017 with emergency responder trauma counselors. And so I've been the team leader for our peer support program. Peer-to-peer support can be a really effective tool to help individuals empathize with their situations. That peer support member can just be there for them. And that in itself, without giving advice or anything, could just be helpful for them to cope with whatever they've been through. An agency having a good formulated plan to provide support, provide resilience during a stressful environment, and then also provide tactics to be able to handle traumatic incidents following that allows for a much better career where you can maintain longevity and be able to flourish in this career without some of those traumas or stressors influence you on a chronic level.
Oh, ma'am. Every call, no matter how big or small, no matter how dramatic or not, every call takes a little piece of you. And you need to realize when you don't have any more pieces to give. The system now that supports young firefighters and young EMTs is much more robust than it was 30 years ago when I was going through these calls. The biggest thing is people still need to recognize when they're stressed.
If you're entering into this profession, it's really a servant leadership role that you're fulfilling. And I think after years of doing this, you look back and you say there's hundreds of people that you changed their outcome for their lives. Is there a person that was a good father, a good mother? Was there a person that went on to help other people, become a nurse or a doctor? There's a lot of stories like that in my career that I would go back and be happy to say that people got extra time with their loved ones. And that's an honorable thing to be doing with your life.
The video we just saw mentions the day-to-day stressors that EMS face while on the job. After seeing traumatic events day after day, those events can pile up and really start to affect your mental health. It's important to focus on your feelings and notice when you may be stressed out. Some may experience stress differently than others, so we're going to be pointing out some common signs of stress. Take a mental note as I read through the signs to see if you've experienced any of these signs either on the job or when thinking about a specific situation. That may be your body telling you that it's time to practice a self-regulation tactic. Stress in yourself and others can be noticed through memory issues, overthinking, avoidance, sweating, stomach issues, panic attacks, trouble breathing, lack of patience, trouble concentrating, procrastination, constant worrying, needing reassurance, headaches, rapid heartbeat, and insomnia. All these factors influence your stress levels and potential health risks, so it's important to learn how to manage our stressors and how to make sure you're taking care of your mental health. Although noticing your stressors is a great first step, doing something to calm your nerves and release stress is a very important next step. With that being said, we're going to be practicing a self-regulation tactic that has been shown to help first responders during stressful events. We're going to be practicing box breathing together to work on self-regulating. This technique is great to use because it only takes a few seconds and it can be done anywhere. We'll try it together and I'll walk you through the steps. You can get seated in a comfortable position with your feet flat on the floor. You're going to want to close your eyes and breathe in through your nose, counting to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now exhale your breath to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let your body rest for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go through this 2 more times together. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll do it one more time. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, hopefully everybody feels a little more relaxed after that. Now we'll be moving on to our third and final resiliency skill set of this webinar, which is mental agility. Mental agility is the ability to look at situations from multiple perspectives and to think creatively and flexibly. I'll be passing it over to our peers to go over why mental agility is important and how it pertains to their work.
Thanks, Jess. The third part of our resilience plan is mental agility. To my way of thinking, there are only a few things we really need to know and do for any type of stress, whether it's at work or at home. First, know the characteristics of your area, not just the geography, but the people and places that are there. What are their needs and wants? Know what your strengths and limitations are, whether it's for equipment, personnel, knowledge, or emotions at home and at work. The final thing we need to know for mental agility is to be flexible. No fire or EMS scenes or situations are exactly identical to any other. We need to be able to cope with the differences as well as the similarities. Sometimes, as overused as the term might be, we might need to think outside the box and come up with a better solution to our problem. There are often many ways to accomplish our goals, and certainly some are better than others. But in terms of our work lives or our home lives, we have to look at our resources and make sure that we have them in place when we really need them. I'll pass it along to you, Judy, for your input.
Thanks again, Alan. I found when responding to a call, I would set up a plan of action in my head. But sometimes I found when I showed up, the entire situation was not as planned. It was either more serious or involved multiple people or incidents. I had to be mentally agile and adapt to the situation. Jess, I'll pass it back to you.
One way to enhance mental agility is to look at things from a new perspective. Practicing positivity does not mean ignoring the negative. It just means that you're choosing to focus on something positive rather than pointing out the negative. Becoming aware of these thought patterns is crucial in regulation and noticing negative emotions and reframing your negative thoughts. Positive reframing is one way we can enhance our mental agility. You can practice reframing by first recognizing the negative situation. You may be experiencing anxiety or stress before the workday. Then you're going to become aware of your thoughts. You may find yourself thinking, I can't do this today, or I don't feel like going to work today. And then finally, you're going to reframe your thoughts to be more positive. Thinking to yourself things like, today is another opportunity to learn new things and grow into a better version of myself. You can also use positive affirmations to do this by saying things like, I am capable and I believe in myself, and I am open to all opportunities today. The next time you find yourself ruminating on something negative, remember to recognize, become aware, and reframe. These 3 steps can help rethink a situation and encourage you to point out the positive aspects of your day. Next, we have some poll questions to get a sense of how often you reflect on your emotions and stressors, and to get a sense of your self-awareness, self-regulation, and mental agility. I'll read through the questions aloud, and you can answer them as we go through. The first question is, how often do you pause throughout your day? Often? Sometimes? Never? Maybe it's something you're not currently doing but want to work towards. The second question is, how often do you check in with your body to notice any stress or tension? So again, often, sometimes, never. How often do you analyze your emotions and reactions? Often, sometimes, never. Maybe this is something you're working towards. The fourth question is, do you agree that you can use self-regulation breathing techniques while on duty? You either strongly agree, maybe you don't agree or disagree, maybe you disagree, maybe you don't know and you want to try it out. So take a reflection and just see how you did, analyze your answers. Maybe there's some areas where you can improve. You can keep these questions handy and revisit them in a few days or a few weeks to see if you've made any of those improvements, and just reflect on how you're doing with your self-awareness, self-regulation, and mental agility. I'll now be passing it back over to Alan to go over some first responder statistics.
Thanks, Jess. We wanted to share some research articles and statistics with you all, just to show you that our professions are undoubtedly stressed. And even if you aren't currently looking for any support, someone you work with may benefit from knowing about our services. As we saw in the first video, the IAFF found that 19% of firefighters have experienced suicidal thoughts, 27% have struggled with substance abuse, 65% are haunted by memories of traumatic work situations, and more than 80% of firefighters said they felt that asking for help might make them seem weak or unfit for duty. In some other studies, we found that 49% of EMS personnel self-reported burnout, with 43% suffering from work overload and 38% experiencing anxiety or depression. We've also found that 18 to 24% of 911 dispatchers report enough symptoms of PTSD that they would likely receive a diagnosis if they were seen by a psychologist and were formally evaluated. I'll hand it back over to Judy, who will be wrapping up our webinar.
Thanks, Alan. New Jersey Fire EMS Lifeline has adopted the skills in the UPENN model. It gives us a broad introduction to its tenets, such as practical ways and activities for utilizing them in daily home and work life. We hope you find these skills useful, and we encourage you to reach out to our fellow first responders at any time for additional insight and peer support. We're here when you need us. Self-awareness, self-regulation, and mental agility all benefit and improve moods, better and healthy relationships, and effective communication, which are all great reasons to continue practicing these resilience skills. Back to you, Jess.
Thanks, Judy. Here are a few phone numbers to keep handy. We have our phone number on there, the Firefighter Mutual Benevolent Association, the Professional Firefighters of New Jersey, and the Suicide and Crisis Lines, which are the New Jersey Hope Line and National Hope Line. We also have a chat feature on our website if someone prefers to text rather than to talk on the phone. It's easy to access. You just go to our website, njfireems.com, click on the chat option, and then click on Chat with an Expert, and you'll be connected to one of our peers. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our webinar and learned some new information. And just a reminder that our next webinar will be on July 26th, where we will be going over strengths of character, connection, and optimism. Here's our QR code to our website. As I mentioned, we have the chat feature on there. Our contact information is on this slide as well. Feel free to reach out if you're in need of any support or you know somebody who might be. Thank you again for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day.